Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I look at two very unusual 1998 SkyBox sets that, well, one's not really unusual. It's kind of the last step of the SkyBox Impact run in football. But the other set is truly an unusual set that doesn't really go with anything, except it was also in 1998. And since SkyBox Thunder, I couldn't really include it in the Impact video, I'm doing it as a standalone, and thus I'm tying in SkyBox Double Vision in with the same video so that the two can kind of fill each other out. That's what I'm doing. And the reason that I'm doing it in this order is, like I said, SkyBox Thunder is the next step for SkyBox Impact. Impact ran from 92 through 97, and while I'd like to talk about 98 Thunder as the next incarnation of 97 Impact, which it was, there's also a 2000 Impact. So I wanted to talk about that with Impact. That left SkyBox Thunder to be a standalone. And so that's the reason that I'm doing this video with these two very distinct 1998 SkyBox, basically non-SkyBox Premium or EX sets. That's kind of the way to look at it. But before I get into Thunder, I want to talk about the other set because it is so distinct and it's very brief, so we can get it out of the way in a hurry, and that is Double Vision. So in the case of Double Vision, this is a 5x7 card, so it's huge. But this is also cardboard in a way that other cards just never were. It's a super thick card. It's got multiple layers in it, so it's very, very much cardboard. And the front is a monochromatic shot of the player, basically, and it has an acetate window with a black and white shot of the player. Pretty basic. And the card back is, big monochromatic card back with a quote about the player. That is the card. But on the front, that acetate window is the key to what this card is, because over on the side you'll notice there's a little notch, and if you pull that notch out, you'll find that the window slides open, and the black and white image of the player behind that is a full color image of the player, where the black on the acetate is the black for the image. Kind of a 96 Pacific lithocell concept. And then there's another window right next to it that has a proper shot of the player in full color. And so that's what the card is. If you turn it around, inside of that tag, you have essentially the card back. Why they did this, I don't know. It's really, this is the kind of thing you should have seen a few years earlier. But they did it here in 98. The one advantage these cards do have, though, is the fact that on the front they are serial numbered out of 5,000. So there are only that number that were made. The card set itself is just 32 cards. It's very short. These were one per pack, so they were designed to, I don't know who the audience was for, but they were designed to have you had to really commit yourself to completing the set. And the set, it has main players, but it also has a subset, which is just a theme, which is cards that look the same. The player just has a different color card. That's pretty much it. But on the card back, when you slide it out, there it talks about the strange but true facts about different players. So in the case of Terrell Davis, the strange but true fact is that he and the previous, so Terrell Davis was the MVP of the first AFC Super Bowl win since the mid-1980s, when the Raiders won the Super Bowl. Marcus Allen was the MVP in that Super Bowl, Terrell Davis in the subsequent one. So they bookended by a long distance. They were both running backs, but the strange but true fact, they both went to the same high school. So, which is actually pretty cool. So that's what these cards are. That's what the subset is. It's basically the same card. They just do a little bit of a different write-up on the card back. But even on the back of the main card, that quote, it's the same between both of the cards. So it's a card set that you're not going to run into very often. And it really doesn't have much of a place in a collection because it's oversized. It doesn't really fit. It doesn't really look all that impressive. Yeah, this was a weird one. I really don't know what they were thinking, and I hope that they did figure out what they were thinking. But very unusual. But getting back to Thunder. So SkyBox Thunder was the next iteration of, like I said, Impact, but also over in basketball, Z-Force. So with Z-Force, the 96 Z-Force set is kind of its own standalone affair. But then for 97 Z-Force, they took what the 1997 Impact set had developed, and they took it to the next step. They didn't totally reinvent it at all. Instead, they just kind of tweaked it, and it made it as a half step to what we would see in 1998. So the 98 Thunder set was a combination of Impact and of Z-Force, but also in basketball, they released Thunder distinctly. So that means that SkyBox Thunder is basically where they took all of these sets they were doing in the different sports, and they coalesced it into a 1998 release called Thunder. And many of the things you see from the previous sets you can see them here in this set. So the card is kind of a psychedelic color whirlwind, and very bold, difficult to see the player. A bunch of things kind of scattered around. They have a gold foil logo for the Thunder, the set name, and then they have a color foil for the player name. And the reason I say color foil is that is not attached to the team or anything special. It's totally random. Each player has a different color foil. So it's like what they did in 97 Impact for the color on the player name. So in 1998, they did basically the same thing, except they used foil for the color. That's pretty much what they were doing. And the card set, there wasn't really anything too special about it. It had its own kind of pop to it, but it didn't have anything really endearing to it. Even on the card back, it was designed to look kind of interesting, but not engaging. This card set was really about parallels, and they didn't get too crazy with them. The parallel set for Thunder is called Rave, and these are cards that are all serial numbered out of 150 on the back, silver foil. But on the card front, they replaced the color foil with a speckly holofoil, silver holofoil, and it doesn't really fit. It's a weird one they went with. It was, again, this is one of those things where they come up with something on paper and then they just kind of print it out and figure out, they just kind of turn it out. This was not well developed. But the card set really was about their Super Rave, the higher level of their parallel. Same design. In this case, they have it numbered out of 25, and they use a copper prismatic effect for the foil. And the foil is both the player name and for the logo in both of these cases. So that's what they went with. And it's again, it's not a very well structured card. It's kind of thrown together. So it's a card that you can either forget about because it doesn't really stand out, or you can get caught up in the hype of it and really get carried away, which most people tend to do. Trust me, there are other cards that are much better that are numbered out of 25 from 1998. But this is one of the ones that everyone's really focused on, so okay. Now the set is very basic. They didn't do any subsets. All they did was some rookie cards at the end, and the rookie cards, 98, this is the Peyton Manning year, these cards were early releases, so the players are all in their college uniforms. They do have a team logo on it, which is nice, and then they have a little rookie logo that it shows up on the card, but otherwise it's done pretty much the same way as the main cards in the set. And then the last cards are a couple of checklists where they do have a player on the front of the card. The foil is not for the player name, it's for the word checklist, but that is how they closed the set. And that was the set. They did do some inserts, and the first insert was Boss 98. That's it's weird to say it. Every time I get to it, it's just like that. Really, but that's what it's called. It's Boss 98. This is a fully embossed card, and it's got a whole bunch of interesting patterns around the player. But the big thing is the richness of the colors. This card just looks really cool. And it makes me wish that they had done a bigger set, because when you have this much really bold, strong, and frankly beautiful color, this is the kind of thing where you want to have multiple cards for each player. So you want to have like a 50 card set so you can get multiple players on each team and actually see them grouped together. Would have been a huge benefit, but they came up with something, so at least we did get something. Then they have Destination End Zone, and this is a card that is really nice. It has holofoil up at the top. It has some gold or some red foil down at the bottom for the set logo, set logo, and then the rest of the card is just it really does look like a SkyBox premium insert. That's really what this looks like. The card back is just a whole bunch of text, and it's just a really nice card. Except that's not the point of the card. This is actually a trifold, and so when you open it up, on the 3 panels on the inside, you see there's kind of a journey that he's gone through. So this is the journey of his career to an extent. That's the design of the card. There's nothing that the inside really brings to it, so to me this is one of those things where you can put it on display as just the regular card, and that's really the beauty of the card. That's the strength of it. They also did number crunchers, and for this they have a card front that is, it's pretty lackluster. I mean, it's difficult to read, it's got a good shot of the player, but the rest of it, it looks like a misprint, like there's supposed to be foil on it that's missing. That's not the way that that's just the way that it's made. It's nothing's wrong with the card. On the card back, it's just a bunch of text, but you will notice that down at the bottom there's a tab. And if you pull the tab down, you'll find that on the front there's nothing, but on the back there is, on the card back there's a window, and then you have the arc as well down at the pull tab. Whenever you pull it down to where there's text in the window, down inside the arc of the pull tab is the number that is the answer to the question or to the statistic. So that's what the card design is built around. And it's interactive, which is kind of cool. I wish card companies did this more, this kind of thing. It's kind of playful, which is kind of strange for this particular set, but still, that's what they did for this set. Then they have Quick Strike. And for Quick Strike, I'm not sure which side is the front or the back. I guess that technically the front of the card is supposed to be the player side, but for me, I always do it the other way around, because even though the disclaimer is on what I identify as the front of the card, this is a card set that's designed around a book of matches. And because of that, while the face of the matches is on the back side from the binding, still the whole theme of this is built around the binding, the actual flap that you open up. So it can go either way. For me, I'm just going to go ahead and say that the picture of the player is on the card back because, again, thematically, you're more interested in the opposite side. And it's just a picture of the player. They really don't do anything else. And then they do have a strip down at the bottom, which is where you would normally have the sandpaper for the striking strip. So they really went with the whole theme. But on the opposite side, you have the Quick Strike logo, and then down at the bottom, you do have a flap. And there is a staple, an actual staple down at the bottom. If you open up the flap, inside there's some text, and there is a filler card inserted in. Now, because a book of matches has the matches themselves stapled in, this filler card is, I assume in all cases, stapled in, which creates a problem because on one side it's got a great image. But if you really pull it open, you'll find there's text on either side inside that you've got to work really hard to see. This is truly a design that someone came up with that was brilliant, but it was difficult to make fully work. And I don't think they fully resolved it. Unless it's just the case of the cards that I've gone through that are this way, I really don't know. But for me, if you're going to stuff text way down in there, make it easier to read. Regardless, it's a cool idea. It really is cool. It is a very distinct feature to this whole set, and even though it's an awkward card, I really like it. And then the last set is Starburst. And Starburst is rookies, that's all it is. Again, they're in their college uniform, and then they have this big gold holofoil pattern behind, and that is pretty much the only design. That is pretty much all there is to say about the card. I'd like to go on more about Thunder and anything else, but I can't. That's the thing. Both of these sets are very brief. There's not a lot to them. So I wish that they'd done more with Thunder, primarily because there were a lot of interesting ideas that they just never... It's almost like Thunder was an afterthought where they were trying to figure out how to save something, but they'd already kind of moved on mentally, and they just didn't put enough into it. There is so much potential just in the idea process of what I see here. But this is what they've got. So that's going to bring this video to a close because there's nothing more to talk about with either of these. So I really do appreciate your watching. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, make sure to do that. Also, check out my other videos if you haven't had a chance. Thank you very much for watching.